Thanks. If you're not muted, if you could go ahead and just mute yourselves, we'll give you an opportunity to ask questions. Tonight is our second in our series of coach meetings. And so I'm happy that you're all able to join us. Fief is joining us tonight. Kylie is in the wings. And so we're just going to continue along with some of the discussion that we had last week. And we do have a plan to go into breakouts tonight. So we'll explain that as we get a little bit closer. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Fief and let her go ahead and get started on her content for today. All right, thanks everyone.
Hello everyone. I echo Cheryl's sentiments. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm hearing a little bit of a scratch. I'm not sure. I just went through to see if there was anybody else off mute, but anyway, welcome. And again, thank you for your time this evening. I feel like we will have a very interactive session. I mentioned that in the email. Lots to share. There's a lot of conversations happening amongst the areas and with the coaches. And so I think a terrific opportunity for folks to share their thoughts and ideas, maybe steal a few and use for your particular team or your program. So if we can go to the next slide. So tonight we're going to do, I'll call it a mini review on our original coach clinic that happened last Tuesday. And then we're really going to spend the bulk of the time about the return to the court planning session, which will include kind of the welcoming the families as they approach the facility, what happens upon that, and then how we get organized to get the teams, the players on the court, and then start conducting the session. And then of course we have time for Q&A. As a part of the court planning session, Cheryl just mentioned, we'll have a breakout session that will be by area. And we'll talk a little bit more in detail on that in a moment. So if we flip to the next slide. I don't know if it's not moving on mine, and maybe it's just not moving at all. There we go. All right, so as far as a review, last week we talked a little bit more in detail about building a practice plan. We reviewed the program, the training program document to show folks that the sections that were in it, the material that's there, how to combine it and use it as a tool as you move forward with progressive practice plans. Clearly, we're looking to have the components up on the screen here included in each of the sessions that we're meeting with the athletes for the warm-up, especially obviously the skill development, both individual and group activity, ensuring that we have a decent cool down, and then all along the way focusing on the health and the fitness and just being planned enough so that we keep them moving throughout the time that we're in the gym, because our gym time is so precious. So if we flip to the next slide. So again, this is part of our review. Events that would be offered this year are the individual skills, the 3-on-3 half court, and then the 5-on-5 full court. And there's obviously within those divisions as well. And then the team makeups that we're working with are the youth traditional, the 8 to 12-year-olds, junior traditional, the 13 to 17, and then our adult divisions with the 18 years and older. So as we walk through things tonight, and I'm sure, again, from hearing some of the conversations, people are very mindful of the athletes that have registered, where they are looking to fall within the events offered, and then the team makeups. Really trying to focus on making sure that, you know, age appropriate, competition level appropriate at the center of it all, to make that competition for our athletes the best that it can be. So if we flip to the next slide, this is just the overview of the athlete assessment. This was a supplemental to the program training. And this may be a form that you will use. I know from hearing from some of the coaches, sport directors, this is a form that they use. It's a traditional form that's been used. And it provides, I would say, an easy way to tally results as far as being able to have the numeric values to tally up to get a good vision on that. You may have a different way to utilize the time in the gym to assess the athletes, which is totally fine. We just want to make sure that folks are thinking critically about the assessments, about our athletes, so that ultimately, again, it's a great experience for them on the court for each practice, as well as the jamboree and obviously the state tournament. So if we flip to the next slide, and we seem to be talking a lot about the athlete assessments, and the question is posed, well, why? What makes it so critical for us at this time? And a lot of it is driven by the fact that we do have significantly reduced numbers for our athletes. Some of the areas are not seeing the participation for certain teams, and so we're going to have to mix and combine. We have coaches that are not rejoining for the season. And probably one of the more impactful is it's been 2 years. 2 years since our athletes have been on the court. Maybe they play some, at school or at home, but in terms of playing with their teammates from Special Olympics, that's a long time. We have, conditioning. We saw that when we had the tryouts for the Delaware State team for the national games. So conditioning is certainly going to be a factor. In just the recall, if they're not doing the skill, they don't have that memory recall. It's going to be a lot more instruction and teaching, perhaps, for some of the teams. So that's one item that I think is probably an overarching. This will cause the numbers being down, and perhaps the level of play. The historical teams, right? A lot of times from year to year, it's the same exact athletes on the same team with the same coach. That may not be the case this year, just given the makeup of the registrants. So all in all, we're just trying to make sure that where we land for competition is competitive for all the athletes, that all of them are able, anybody that registered has the opportunity to participate, and that it is a competitive opportunity for them. And that if we're doing that, we should be placing them in the most advantageous position to be successful in their endeavors on the court. So one of the things that kind of came to mind as we were talking through was, if we think back to when we used to be in community and we moved to the area format, we went through a lot of this during that time frame. And for coaches that may not have been with us at that time, it used to be more of a community focused program. You came from a certain locale, and there may have been 4 or 5 teams that were really separate within Wilmington or in Sussex. And then we went to the area where all the athletes came together, and then there was an opportunity to kind of build the program out from there, which spread the ability to have more teams, because some of the areas were shorter on numbers. Excuse me, some of the community teams were shorter on numbers. So if we do think back to that time frame, it's very reminiscent of what we're seeing now, as far as trying to make sure that we have all the registrants in a particular event, and that it is competitive for them. So if you go to the next slide, and in tonight's time that we'll spend together, a chunk of it, 20 minutes, will be spent with the coaches and their sport directors within their breakouts. So what we are hoping to have addressed during the breakouts are these categories. So welcoming your athletes, the return to the court. So their initial hello, the COVID screening, instructions for once the athlete enters into the gym, right? Because we only have the vaccinated participants are entering into the gym. So the parents or someone that's the transporter are not going into the gym. So all of that just being prepared. And I know, again, from a lot of the conversations, people are already thinking about this and mapping that out. So I think this will be a nice opportunity to share. And then when it comes to the individual assessments, like we said, use the assessment form. If there's another proven evaluation method that you're comfortable with and it's worked for you in the past, then lean into that. The assessors, who will be doing the assessments, who's going to work on the instruction side of it, to demonstrate the drills and what's happening, ultimately making sure that we're gathering feedback from that session, from whomever was assessing, and then talking about the outcome, what event and or what team, the determination of that. So with this, let me just say, because I know there's been some discussion about limitations on number of athletes to perhaps make a team, even if it's a 3-on-3. We do our best at this juncture. We assess the athlete for where we believe they need to be and how we can formulate a team. if there is a situation where there are not enough athletes, or you're on the fence, or we would say on the bubble on where to place that athlete, let's have conversations about it. Let's figure out how that can work so that everybody can participate, and then ultimately it's a great outcome. We've never, I don't ever recall gotten a situation where like, no, we can't do that, and then that athlete can't participate, or we don't work with individual situations. This period of time between now and probably the first and second practice, and going through and figuring out where we believe athletes would fit from an event and a team, it's going to take some time to get there, and we're going to see where it lands. And that may not be the end all be all. We've seen it before where we get to Jamboree, and even what we thought was going to be the team post Jamboree, the evaluation was, we've got some switches and some moves that we need to make. So while we're asking to do the best that we can and to get things situated, we're also cognizant that things can change, and we're open to having those discussions. So if we go to the next slide. And for the sport directors, we sent out a document, a Word document, to use as a kind of a question and a prompt to help guide the conversations. And it's, this planning session, kind of reviewed a little bit ago, that it's, how do we welcome our athletes and the families? What is the assessment going to be comprised of? Is it going to be all individual kind of fundamental stations? Is it going to be scrimmaging? What are the drills that we want to look at using? And then executing it. What are the coaches doing? Is the assistant coach running one half of the court and the other coaches, or the head coach has the other half of the court? How is that all going to be designed so that you can get in, do your stretching, your warm up, get to your time of assessing and having the athletes perform the drills and skills, and then being able to evaluate. And then ultimately making sure that you have time in the end, and whether you choose to do it during the practice or maybe you do it afterward, to be able to make sure that everybody's input is considered, and the athletes have the opportunity then to be placed. And maybe you do that the first practice and you're pretty settled, and they come back in the second and you have some adjustments to make. But all in all, for the breakout time, what we're hoping is that we can focus on the categories. On the sheet, and I don't know, Cheryl, I might be able to share this because I did pop it up just so that folks are looking at. No, I can't share while you're sharing. So let me ask this, and you may have to come off mute. For the sport directors, and I know Maureen is representing the Wilmington area this evening, but for the sport directors, before we head into the breakout time frame, are there any questions that you have on kind of how this is supposed to function?
Yeah, Fief. I was not, I thought I was just coming in and I was gonna kind of give Ed some information, but I didn't realize that I was representing the Wilmington area.
Okay,
so I'm not totally prepared. I'm not prepared for any of that part, but
I think we'll be okay. We found out that Ed wasn't able to join us, so I'm going to hop in there with you, and I think between the two of us, we should be able to pull some things together.
All right, cool.
Yep. How about anybody else? Oh yeah, Kylie.
Steve, it's Kylie. How are you?
Well,
good. Great to see everyone tonight. Just looking through, I think we're missing quite a few of our sport directors, unfortunately. And so talking kind of in front of everyone here, but wondering if it might be more beneficial to do a mini breakout for areas, not as long, and then regroup and kind of talk through it together as a whole, since we're missing some of those leaders tonight.
That works.
Okay. So you want to say like 5 minutes, 8 minutes an area breakout?
I would probably do 8, just because by the time we get in and get situated.
Okay, perfect. And you and I, maybe we can bounce around to the areas as they chat.
Okay.
Awesome. So if there's not any other questions at this point, we can open up the breakout rooms, and you will be prompted at the bottom of your screen in the right-hand corner. It'll say join a breakout. If you're on your phone, it's going to be in the top left-hand corner, and you're simply just going to pick your area and join. I can use them. Margaret, what area are you associated with? I can send you to the room.
Newark.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Bonnie, what area are you associated with? Chris?
Yeah, I'm with MOT.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna put you in there. There you go. Thank you.
Michelle, what area are you associated with? And Liz, what area are you associated with?
Sorry, I don't do Zooms. Sussex.
You're okay. Liz, you're Sussex?
Yes, please.
Perfect. So again, there's only one person there.
I think you're muted, Mary.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
You
It's
were
okay, we
muted.
all got back.
Yeah.
He's the host now. Okay.
Every day.
Hey, hey, welcome back, everybody. All right. So I know I hopped into 2 different rooms. I think good questions and probably some information to share out of those with this greater group. Some basketball related, some administration related. I don't know, Kylie, if you've got same, but I can certainly share what came out of the rooms that I had popped into, and then we can add on to that if that works.
Yeah, I definitely was hearing the same thing, some COVID related questions, administrative items, and then some assessment basketball specific. I think the one takeaway certainly is that for me, I think the area meetings are helpful. And so what I intend to do based on this call is to follow up with our sport directors and ask them to arrange for a specific area, whether it's email, phone call, something, to ensure everyone's on the same page going into January.
Sounds good. Some of the questions that came out. So for the practice safety volunteers, they will be, and Kylie, tell me if I get off the reservation, but they are intended to be aligned to practices. They would be there to be able to conduct your screenings and to help you and not to have that on your plate. The question that came out of that is, we spoke last year as a committee that there's, package or, their gear that they need to bring if it is anything. Like, do they need to have certain, any sheets with them to record things, whatever that is. So when can they have that gear if it's needed, and how do they get it?
So all of the kits are prepared. The only thing that is not ready to go yet is rosters, and that is because we still are getting some medicals and vaccine cards in through January 1st. They all will be delivered to you or picked up by your first practice. And so I will connect with the sports directors on that. There are some we'll deliver right to them or attend the first practice. And so you will receive it. You'll receive a PPE kit with hand sanitizer, mask, all of those items, as well as a binder for your safety volunteer to do the check-in each week. And so I will just throw a little plug in here that we still are in need of some safety volunteers. The one thing with that, once you do your assessments and place athletes accordingly, we'll have a better idea, or parents will have a better idea of what practice they'll be at. And so I do think we'll get some more volunteers from our parents that way once practices are assigned or once rosters are designed from the assessment.
Awesome. Thank you for that. The other is also on that administrative side, so equipment itself. We historically have sometimes brought it to the clinic, but now that we are virtual, not able to do that in this particular session. So how do we want to handle, and the other thing is to make sure that folks know the equipment form up on the portal, be able to fill out what it is that you do need and thinking through what you do need. But how do we plan on getting the materials to the coaches?
Yeah, so coaches or sport directors can submit their equipment request through the portal. We'll send that link tomorrow as a follow-up, but your equipment can be submitted. That will be pulled and it would be delivered with the PPE kit. So to the first practice or a day or two prior. And again, we typically connect with the sport director to get all of that, those items to them. If you can put in equipment request by the end of this week, even better, so we can ensure we have it over the holidays.
Yeah, and be thinking about cones and pennies. I mean, obviously basketballs come to mind immediately, but think about other tools that you can be using in the practice to put on the list.
Are we going to be double requesting? Like, does Rose already have our need just based on previous years, or are we supposed to go in and individually request those? Do you guys know?
I would probably check with Rose to make sure that she didn't already prepare and is planning to submit it, because she might want to combine it herself and then just submit one request.
Yeah, Amy, I will say I spoke with Rose today and she's planning to submit a request tomorrow. Typically, she requests for the area.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. On the team makeup and assessment side, sounds like folks are pretty settled in some regard with their players and the evaluations thus far. Looking forward to getting on the court, seeing how that maps out. Like I said earlier, take a look at your athletes. You feel like you have a pretty firm. As they come into the practice, some of them haven't been, near the ball in a while, and maybe things have changed, and maybe that's okay because everybody then is at that same level, and we'll have some time to be able to get more firmly situated after first and second practices. I think, Kylie, the goal was come the second week of January to be pretty solid, or at least at that point, solid on where we wanted to know where athletes fell, so we can look at divisions and competition and making sure that it matched up, and ultimately they had not just one team to play against, but had multiple opportunities for competition.
Correct. Yeah. Some of our areas are not starting until that second week in January. So we were looking at like that third week. By the end of January, we should have a really good feel on what team makeups are to ensure meaningful competition for everyone.
Okay. And then on the kind of the practice time, a couple of questions were, timing as far as slotting time for drills, specific drills during these first couple of practices during the assessment. And absolutely, I think that's a great idea. And even for your regular practices. And then as far as how to execute it. So the question being, given enough assistance, if you have someone that is the overall organizer of the session throughout the gym, and then having your setups, if you use 2 baskets, you use 3 baskets, but having, certainly one coach there, an assistant, or 2. If you have the number of bodies, then have 2 to be able to work through, have a demonstrator, have a recorder, and then you also have more eyes on what's happening as far as evaluating. So I think that is the bulk of what we went through in the couple of rooms that I was in. Is there anything else that folks have questions on, want to share? Lots of experience on the phone here. No? Rob Bailey? What's your favorite drill?
What's my favorite drill?
Yeah.
I love all the fundamental drills. It's not that I have a favorite, because when it comes to fundamentals, you need all of them. Your dribbling, your skills for your defense, your offense, your footwork, your balance. I love all the fundamentals, Joe. That's the key to our success. That's the majority of our practice, fundamentals. Because if you master the fundamentals, you definitely be good at the game.
Awesome. Awesome. Anybody else have a fave you want to share, or how you kick off your practice? No? Anyone? We got a quiet group. All right. So we are, let me just ask one more time. Anybody have any other questions? Because I will, I'll plan to wrap up unless, Kylie, do you have anything you want to add?
Hey, Fief, in your last presentation, you basically laid out almost everything. It's basically in your last presentation. That was a masterpiece. I loved it.
Appreciate that. There were a lot of hands that went into that over a period of time. So yeah, I appreciate that. I'll share the wealth and the credit on it. And I did mention to Jonathan that, if it's easier to look through that and to map out how you would like to formulate your practice, awesome. If you start looking at the pages and it's just like, oh, someone could just tell me this in 5 or 10 minutes, map it out for me, with me, reach out. I'm happy to do that. I use the example of I'll spend hours at work trying to figure out what compliance hole that I'm, need to stay out of, because the way that they write the documents is in legalese versus just layman's terms on how to accomplish something. And so someone can tell me in 3 minutes what I need to do versus an hour, sorting through pages. So happy to help in that regard.
Absolutely. And style makes matchups. Everybody's style is not the same.
Fair. Yep. All right. So Kylie, any other things that you would like to share?
No, I didn't have anything else. Again, just your equipment request, if you could get that in, just so if we need to order anything, we have it by the start of your practices or your assessments, that would be awesome. And then, like I said, we still are collecting medicals and vaccine cards. So we'll have all PPE kits and final safety check-in rosters to you guys for your initial practice. The office is closed over the holidays, but if you need anything, bear with us. We'll be checking in periodically, and so please let us know. And then certainly when the season starts, here to support you guys throughout. And thank you for all you do. We couldn't do it without you guys.
Yep. So thank you again for hopping on tonight. Appreciate the dialogue, the questions. Great way to share. There's things that people had mentioned that certainly weren't on the pages here as far as the agenda, but are important and have value on you being prepared to enter into your season. I wish everybody a fantastic holiday season. And yeah, I think just ready to roll. It's been too long, ready to get out on the hardwoods again. So thanks. See, Sarah too. So she can run, but she can't hide. So thank you everybody for your time. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Happy holidays. Happy holidays. Comedy duos.